Hi everyone! I haven't done a book review in a very long time, but I'd like to change that this year. The resource I'll be talking about today, Corseting the 21st Century Body by Carolyn Woolen, this has given me another skill set that I didn't know was possible for me. I'm going to try not to wax poetic about this or make it seem too much like an ad, because really it's not. I paid for this book with my own money, I put in the work to learn and practice the skills, and in return it saved me months or possibly years of my time, and it's paid for itself many times over and pretty much revolutionized the way I work now. By the way, the corset pattern made during this video is the free overbust drafting tutorial from Foundations Revealed for my personal measurements. If you want this tutorial to make a custom corset for yourself, whether on paper or on computer, check the description below. As many of you know, I was in a car accident in 2014, and ever since then I've had a difficult time sewing or even doing things like leaning over a table for long periods of time for things like pattern drafting. And when I developed the Hourglass and Gemini corset lines starting in 2015, these were all drafted by hand. Every single size was graded by hand, and it put a lot of stress on my back and my neck. The Gemini line was released more than a year after the Hourglass line because we worked the old-fashioned way with pencil and paper. Then I would trace a paper copy of that most recent rendition of the pattern and literally have to put it in the mail. If I mailed it rush, signature required, to Thailand, that letter cost over $70. And it would still take 1 to 2 weeks to get there, and who knows if it might be damaged by the time it gets there. There's a lot of risks involved, and every part of that process takes a long time. The fastest way to get things done is to simply go to Thailand, but of course that's thousands of dollars just in flights, plus coordinating everybody's schedules and the like. And I wasn't able to go last year during the development of the Gemini line because I was still finishing up nutrition school. Grading the Gemini pattern in waist sizes 18 inches up to 42 inches in the round rib silhouette and the straight rib silhouette is 26 individual patterns. And because I was doing it by hand, there were small inaccuracies between each size. Sometimes precision of millimeters is necessary in drafting and constructing a corset. Amber of Lovely Rats was my MVP in 2016 because she helped digitize the corset patterns for me. I know that this is a skill taught in fashion school. I also know that my dad, being a technician, had used CAD programs, or computer-aided design programs, with his work in the past, but I was very intimidated by the technology, and I didn't think I'd ever be able to wrap my head around it without formal instruction like a course. Enter Carolyn Woolen of Corsets by Carolyn. She had been working with AutoCAD for at least 15 years, and in late 2016, she published a book on Etsy called Corseting the 21st Century Body, which is all about using modern drafting techniques to bring a contemporary edge to the traditional art of corset making. Carolyn also has a Patreon, where if you give just $5 a month, you'll get a new corset pattern already tested, graded to size, and everything every month. Individually, these corset patterns sell for between $10 and $20 US, so getting a new one monthly for just a $5 subscription is a fantastic deal if you're really keen on experimental corset making and testing out different styles. So she really practices what she preaches and uses CAD heavily in her own corset business. Anyway, back to the book. Corseting the 21st Century Body. It's a 97-page book, and half of that is on learning how to create corset patterns in DraftSight, which is a free CAD program, and the latter half is a bit of instruction on how to construct corsets, but it's deliberately lightweight in this area. Carolyn says that you should already have some knowledge of corset making before you pick up this book, because the instruction of actually assembling the corset itself is not fully extensive. The most valuable part of this book is the pattern drafting instruction. And she not only gives you step-by-step instructions, but she also gives you specific exercises so you can build up your skills and familiarity with the various tools you'll need for drafting patterns. In December 2016, I first cracked open this book, and I played around with the program for about an hour, realized I was in over my head, and decided to shelve the idea of learning computer-aided design for a while. It wasn't until April 2017 that I gave it another try. I gave myself the goal of going through just 1 page per day, practicing making lines and circles in DraftSight for about 20 minutes a day. I figure with 45 pages of CAD instruction, it would take me around 6 weeks to get through that part of the book. And then maybe by the end of another 6 weeks of regular practice, maybe at that point I would be good enough that I'll have my first corset pattern drafted and I would be able to test it. So I was deliberately going really slow with it, and Carolyn said that this is not a skill you can perfect in just a weekend. She's right though. I did not go through the book in 2 days. I ended up getting the hang of it in about 3 days. Obviously, I didn't have the perfect knowledge of every single function of the CAD program, but I do have a fair knowledge of all the tools I need for drafting corset patterns, and then a few more. Carolyn is a super sweet person as well, and there were times where I got stuck and I felt like I wanted to throw my computer out the window. But she said I could email her or message her anytime if I needed clarification. I think there were 3 or 4 situations where I think I just messed up on the settings and did something silly. For instance, I kept trying to save my patterns as a PDF, but they would all be invisible when I opened my PDF file. I tried tinkering with the program for over an hour and I just couldn't get it. In the end, it was just because the layers were accidentally locked and had the no print icon checked. So most of my frustrations just took the smallest, click of a button to resolve. Remember when I said it used to take me an hour to grade each size of a corset pattern if I was using pencil and paper? Within a few weeks of using DraftSight, I had enough practice that I was able to really precisely grade each corset size in less than 10 minutes. And that's with seam allowances, grain lines, labels, color coding, everything. I was able to sit or stand at my standing desk as I was comfortable as I was working on these corset patterns, and so I didn't have to hurt my neck or back. And the best part was being able to instantaneously email the corset patterns to the factory in Thailand instead of using snail mail, which would take 2 weeks. Thailand is exactly 12 hours ahead of me, so I can make a corset pattern in the afternoon and email it to them in the evening, my time, for them to receive it by 8 a.m., the start of their workday. By the end of their workday, which is the next morning for me, they would have a mock-up or a sample made. We use a combination of testing the corset patterns. The slower way, but the more thorough way, is to send over the corset samples so I can check it in person. The faster way is to send me pictures of the corset samples on their fit models. Once the fit is tested, I know what changes to make. I can just save it into a new file instead of copying over an entirely new paper pattern, and I can email it to them for the very next day. Testing the mock-up just once used to take us over a month using traditional drafting methods and snail mail. Now, theoretically, it can take us as little as 2 days. Remember, at the start of this project, I had given myself 12 weeks or about 3 months to just learn the DraftSight CAD program and try to have one corset pattern drafted. By the end of those 3 months, in reality, I had learned the CAD program, I had 4 new corset patterns drafted, tested multiple times, tweaked, perfected, and fully graded. Plus, I was able to scan in and digitize many of my old corset patterns lying around for years, so I was able to get rid of paper clutter. Everything is much more organized and easy to pull up for reference, and I'm able to more quickly and easily tweak those patterns if I want to use them again in the future. So when I say that Carolyn's book has revolutionized the way I work, saved me a mind-boggling amount of time, and paid for itself many times over, I really do mean it. So huge thanks to Carolyn for creating this resource. If you have any interest in learning how to use a CAD program or learning how to draft corset patterns digitally, you need this book. As someone who is literally physically pained by drafting by hand, learning this new skill set was so freeing. So please don't be intimidated if you don't have any formal education in computers or technology. We all start somewhere. I'll put a link to Carolyn's Etsy shop in the description below and also up in the cards. Let me know if you have any questions at all. If you have also read Carolyn's book, let us know what you think of it in a comment below as well. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!